Hello, welcome to another Purple Insider Extra. Matthew Coller here along with Sam Ekstrom. And Sam, I just got back from Indianapolis, and here's what I found out. It's a lot of fast people in Indianapolis. This year's draft class put up incredible numbers at the NFL Combine, and I think one of the winners of the week was the Minnesota Vikings because their potential positions of need really shined, especially the pass rusher group, and also the allegedly weak quarterback draft made a case that it might not be quite as weak as it's expected to be.
Yeah, I feel like, and we talked about this on the podcast, that some of these mid-round quarterbacks might be turning into top 10 quarterbacks. Desmond Ritter runs a sub 4.5. That's unbelievable. And I don't know if he was in anybody's top three quarterbacks even, but he's probably going to be in the conversation now. You've got defensive ends running legit 4.36s. I mean, that's insane. And some of the really high-end defensive ends running in the 4.5s. That's incredible. And the Vikings have so many positions of need, Matthew, that, I mean, as long as they keep positional value top of mind, it's hard to go wrong in this first round. And I'm of the persuasion that you probably need to find your quarterback of the future here pretty soon. So you might have to pass on some of those defensive linemen, secondary guys in the first round, perhaps. But if you do go that route, I don't think you can really make a bad decision because you're going to get an elite, a fast and athletic player in that spot. With what we're seeing secondary or defensive backs in the 4.2s. That's incredible. The league continues to get bigger, faster, and stronger. You've got massive human beings running absurdly low times. It's unbelievable what we saw in Indy.
It certainly is. And the quarterbacks being more athletic than some people expected per their numbers, like Kenny Pickett, whose hands were indeed small, but it also turned out that he ran a sub 4.7 and put up other really good numbers that would suggest there's more athletic ceiling there. And as you mentioned, Desmond Ritter put his name on the map as well. Nobody had a better week, though he didn't work out, than Malik Willis, who not only threw the ball exceptionally well, had good interviews according to reports, and also was caught on video helping a homeless person. It turned out to be a viral video for Malik Willis, and I think he's ascended himself, at least the way we feel coming out of the combine, up into that top 10 to where if the Vikings want him, they might have to trade up. But some of these other quarterbacks also had a very good week as well. And I think that that's something that has to be on the Vikings' minds as they go into this, because we spoke with Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, and I asked him specifically what he thinks of the idea that it's a weak quarterback draft. And he referenced the 2017 draft that had Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. And the reports were that it was going to be a weak draft for that year. Now, I'm not saying that there's the next Mahomes and Watson, but the point that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah was making is it's really hard to tell. And circumstances change a lot from Liberty College to the NFL or from Cincinnati to the NFL. And it can be very hard to project. So maybe these numbers will bolster the case for some of these guys who maybe were previously thought to not be great prospects. But I also thought, Sam, if the Vikings do stick with Kirk Cousins and draft another position, the edge rushers specifically put up numbers that were just out of this world. Trayvon Walker lit up the combine, the defensive end from Georgia, Jordan Davis, 341 pounds and runs a sub 4.8, just outrageous numbers. David Ojabo from Michigan. Also, he was kind of overlooked because of Aiden Hutchinson, but he also made a good argument for himself as well. So I think if the Vikings are not looking to go with a quarterback in the first round, this edge rusher and defensive line class has all sorts of players that they could pick from.
Yeah, Kayvon Thibodeau as well. He might be gone by number 12, but a 4.58 for him, the Oregon kid. The Vikings need defensive linemen. They need guys that could be a 3-4 fit as well. We don't know what Danielle Hunter's future is. $26 million cap hit. They got to make a move on him as we record this in 13 days before that absurd roster bonus kicks in on March 20th. So they've got a huge decision on him. And even if they keep Danielle Hunter around, I think they still need pass rushers on this team. There's a lot of weaknesses that a good pass rush can cover up, particularly a bad secondary. And the Vikings might have a bad secondary next year. We don't know who their cornerbacks are going to be. We don't know who one of their safeties is going to be. So that's a problem. And you can help that along by getting a really good edge rusher. And the Vikings in the previous regime, Matthew, did not invest in edge rushers very highly in the draft. Now, you can counter that by saying, well, they had Griffin on the team already. They got Hunter in 2015, so they didn't need to do anything else. And that's partly true, but they didn't exactly build a pipeline because all of the defensive linemen they drafted were round 4 or later, essentially. They got in love with sort of that mid-round, lengthy, like unproductive defensive end who they thought they could squeeze more out of. And it didn't really work other than Danielle Hunter. So I think going after those edge rushers early on, we've seen a lot that edge rushers can be impactful early on in their careers. And that's a high positional value that the Vikings desperately need. That'd be a good move in round 1.
And when you look at where Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah came from, San Francisco and Cleveland, those are two teams that invested very highly in top draft pick defensive linemen, Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, for those two respective franchises that influenced the Vikings general manager. I also think that if you can't pressure the quarterback consistently, which the Vikings did not do last year, it doesn't help anybody on the back end, but they do need everything almost on defense. Even linebacker is up in the air with Anthony Barr's situation. But Sam, what would you think if the Vikings decided to go with a wide receiver here? I think that maybe Vikings fans would be a little confused since they have Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. But if we go from Kevin O'Connell's background, the Rams always felt like it was a good idea to add one more wide receiver. They drafted Tutu Atwell last year. They also signed Deshaun Jackson in free agency. They signed Odell Beckham in the middle of the season. And Adam Thielen is getting to an age where you start to look down the road a little bit and how productive he's going to be in comparison to what he was in his past. And when you look at this draft class, there's no Julio Jones, but there are a lot of really good wide receiver prospects. Chris Olave really showed his speed. Garrett Wilson is another guy from Ohio State who's very impressive. I think that drafting a receiver maybe at number 12 would be a little much, but if they were to do something like a trade down and get a future partner for Justin Jefferson, I would not criticize it.
No, you always have to be mindful of what wins in the NFL, which is passing offense, and what your future holds. And I love Adam Thielen as a player. He's been great for this organization. You could find a player that is currently better, more explosive than Adam Thielen. Like if you find a Jamar Chase, that type of player would improve your offense. And Adam Thielen can still have a spot. You're not usurping him necessarily, but looking down the road, are you going to have a young quarterback most likely in the near future? Yes, probably. Are you going to want them to have weapons? Yes, probably. What fuels success in the NFL? Is it passing? Yes, it is. So all of that means you should look to bolster that receiving core. Even if you feel like it's pretty good, the Rams showed that you can never have enough. And hey, if you want to be competitive this year, I'm not sure you're getting better than a 20th ranked defense. I mean, if you go wide receiver in the first round, you're saying, okay, we're going to try to be the number 1 offense. And if we have the 32nd ranked defense, so be it. But we're just going to go all in on this side of the ball. And I think typically teams that invest in weapon after weapon after weapon, the results are usually pretty good.
Yep, I agree. So lots came from Indianapolis, purpleinsider.com. You could check it all out. And of course, the Purple Insider podcast. We did tons of episodes, including with former NFL quarterback Sage Rosenfels, Eric Eager, and Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus. A lot came out of my trip to Indianapolis. So make sure you go check all of that out. And we have a long way to go before we get to the NFL draft. Plenty of more videos and podcasts and articles to come. But for now, I think the Vikings had a very good week for players that they may be targeting. So keep it here. Make sure you subscribe, and we will catch you next time. Purple Insider Extra.